The opinions expressed in this video are my own. If your opinions differ from mine, please constructively let me know in the comments section. Call of Duty Zombies is one of the most well-known video games or video game modes in all of gaming. Most people who regularly play video games, not just Call of Duty, know of the game mode. People who do not play video games have probably heard of the game mode. It's hard to believe that a secret zombie survival game mode that was put into World at War last minute would spiral into the game mode that we all know and love today. However, there is one map in particular that I and many others attribute to the mode's success in the early 2010s, Kino Der Toten. If you were to ask someone to name a Call of Duty Zombies map, odds are they would probably say Kino Der Toten. But why is that? Why, when people are asked to name one of the 34 maps that exist, would most people call Kino Der Toten? That's what I aim to discuss in this video. Why do people always think of Kino when asked to name a map? But also how one single decision could have prevented that, or even killed the mode early in its tracks. Just before this video starts, I would like to remind you to please click the like button. I put a lot of work into my videos, so a like would mean the world. And also subscribe if you have not already to get notified about future uploads. Let's start looking into the facts. Why is Kino Der Toten one of the most well-known zombies maps? And why do some people regard it as one of, if not the, best zombies map of all time? For that, we need to go back to the year 2010. Modern Warfare 2 is the current Call of Duty title, and people are having a fantastic time with it. The multiplayer is hyper-addicting, but also the campaign is incredible. People love this game and can't wait for the next title to release. Good news for them because a new title would be launching later that year, Call of Duty Black Ops. I've written that statement to seem as though it is essential information, and that's because it is. You see, Black Ops is the best-selling Call of Duty title of all time, selling 32 million copies. That number is almost incomprehensible. 32 million copies. 32 million people who now have access to play the zombies map Kino Der Toten. Does that mean all 32 million people who purchased this game played Kino? No, of course not. We all know someone who only buys Call of Duty games for the multiplayer. Maybe you are that person. What I am saying though is that with this game being the most sold Call of Duty title and the word zombies on the main menu piquing the curiosity of pretty well everyone who bought the game, it's not out of the question that everyone has booted up zombies, and specifically Kino Der Toten, at least once. Another piece to the puzzle is actually DLC. DLC, or downloadable content, is extra content you can buy for the game. It was typical for studios to release 4 DLCs during the cycle of their game, and Black Ops was no exception. Where I live, each expansion would cost roughly $15 in Canada. For all 4 DLCs, that would be $60. I'm sorry for rambling about how the DLC and Season Pass system works. It's required to get my next point across. Most people don't buy DLC. That's just a fact. People would instead buy the game and play it. They didn't want to pay for extra content, which is why maps, modes, guns, camos, and everything expansion related are free in current Call of Duty titles. But let's go back to Kino for a minute. Part of the reason why Kino is so well known is that many people have never played the DLC maps. A substantial portion of people who purchased the game and did not play a lot of zombies couldn't be bothered to buy the expansion content. Therefore, these same people would have never played Ascension, Call of the Dead, Shangri-La, or Moon. And if you consider that many of these players had never played World at War, you realize that they had nothing to compare Kino to. Kino is the only map they have ever played, and therefore is the best map they have ever played. Now, I'm sure a lot of this is speculation. I have no data to back up these claims, but it's not out of the question to think that this may be the case very well. World at War isn't even in the top 10 most sold Call of Duty games. Call of Duty World at War sold about 17 million copies. Black Ops almost doubled that game's sales. That's an additional 15 million people playing Black Ops over World at War. 15 million who had never played Noct, Verrückt, Shino, or even Der. Although I don't have the data to back up my claim, the numbers speak a lot. We also need to consider a topic of discussion that some people get defensive about: nostalgia. When you think back to Black Ops, playing Kino Der Toten on your Xbox 360, there is a lot of nostalgia there. No obligations, no bills to pay. Nothing mattered more in the world to you than sitting down to play a little bit of Black Ops, or even Kino specifically. Nostalgia plays a significant factor in why we like things. We all are guilty of nostalgia, closing our eyes to the fact that the thing we love might not be as good as we imagined, because we remember the great times we had with it, not necessarily the product itself. Now, I believe that Black Ops as a whole does not fit into this category. Black Ops is genuinely a great game. From the campaign to the multiplayer, the product is one of my favorite Call of Duty titles, and objectively one of the most outstanding titles in the whole franchise. But what about Kino Der Toten? When you compare Kino to the other 33 maps, is Kino the best zombies map of all time? I think not. I believe nostalgia plays a huge part in why people love this map so much. When you compare this map to the other one launched with Black Ops, 5, you understand why people played Kino so much. 5 is one of the most challenging maps ever, and Kino is far more accessible. So, people enjoyed playing Kino far more, but everyone had their Kino story. By Kino story, I mean a story that everyone remembers about a time they played Kino Der Toten with their friends, family, whoever, and still remembers to this day. For me, it was when my brother and I tried to see how long we could survive in the alley. We never made it far because we were both children and very bad at video games. But I will never forget those moments we had trying to reach round 15. Those Kino stories are a part of the reason people like this map so much. Everyone had Black Ops, played Kino, and had a Kino story. Now that we have a pretty firm grasp on why people regard Kino Der Toten as one of the best, or even the best, zombies maps, what if it didn't release in Black Ops? If you skipped to this part of the video via the timestamps, drop a like on the video and subscribe. Okay, moving on. It's common knowledge that Kino Der Toten wasn't supposed to release on Call of Duty Black Ops, but let's go over the facts again. Kino Der Toten was initially supposed to launch on Call of Duty World at War in the 4th expansion pack. However, due to the release of the expansion being so close to the release of Modern Warfare 2, it was ultimately decided that this expansion would not release, and instead, Kino Der Toten would be a second launch map for Treyarch's next game, Call of Duty Black Ops. I believe this decision saved the zombies mode and made it what it is today. It has become a joke that Kino Der Toten is just a worse Der Riese. People compare these maps as they should. They share a lot of similarities: a teleporter, pack-a-punch, and World War II theme, among other things. However, people say that Der Riese is better, that Kino is just a not as good version of Der Riese. While that may be true from our current perspective, would people state the same thing had Kino released in World at War? If Kino was the 4th DLC map for World at War, would people still call Der Riese better? Or would people call Kino better? I think Der Riese is better overall. There's a small puzzle that must be solved to unlock Pack-a-Punch. The map is laid out better, just small minute things that have me preferring to play Der Riese over Kino most days. However, that's my opinion in my current state, with the knowledge that Kino released on Black Ops, not World at War. And to be honest, I'm not so sure I would have that same opinion had that not been the case. I may have preferred Kino had it released in World at War. After all, Kino was mostly the same map as Der Riese, just larger. In 2008 or 2009, when Zombies was still brand new, the only thing players cared about was the size of the map. Once Der Riese was released, players saw what Zombies could be. Small objectives like opening the Pack-a-Punch. Now take all of that and put it into a larger map with many different rooms, in an old abandoned theater, and we have a winner for the best map in Call of Duty World at War. I genuinely believe that Kino could have become the fan favorite map had it been released with World at War instead of Black Ops. However, we must consider the repercussions of Kino releasing with World at War instead of Black Ops. Remember, we already discussed why Kino became so popular. Black Ops is the best-selling Call of Duty title to date. World at War had almost half as many sales. This would mean the launch map for Black Ops would be 5. This spells bad news for the Zombies mode because 5 is exceptionally difficult. Many would have rather play Kino because it was far more accessible and fun than 5. Now, what if 5 was the only map? I think people would have stopped playing zombies. Hardcore players who enjoyed the difficulty probably would have continued, trying to break records. Still, unfortunately, casual players are the reason maps get made, not the hardcore fanbase. It's a difficult pill to swallow, but it's true. Very few people would have been playing 5 as much as people played Kino. What does this then mean for the DLC maps? Well, I think the DLC maps would probably still have been released, or at least Ascension would have been released. It's hard to say about the rest of the maps because their budgets came from the knowledge that Kino Der Toten was very successful, and the DLCs sold relatively well. But would this be the case with 5 being the free launch map? I think 5 would not have been played that much at all, and therefore Ascension would have suffered. We also need to remember that zombie maps have always been the bonus of these DLC releases. It has always been multiplayer first, so perhaps these DLCs would have sold well, very well even. Black Ops is regarded as one of the best multiplayer modes in COD history, so the expansions would have sold no matter what. But would zombies have continued? If 5 being the launch map performed poorly, and Ascension performed just as poorly due to people not caring about the zombies anymore because of 5, would Call of the Dead have even been made? Or Shangri-La? Or Moon? Or would Ascension have been the saving grace of zombies, and Ascension would be the map I'm talking about being the most crucial map in zombies history? When you start to think about it, it creates a paradox of what if? If 5 was the launch map and performed poorly, and Ascension was the DLC map and it performed poorly, would zombies even be a thing anymore? Would YouTube channels like Mr. T Luxify, Noah J456, or Mr. Raffle Waffles even exist? Would they exist and make different content? It's an impossible question to answer, but we can look at the essential information and guess what would happen. If 5 and Ascension had performed poorly, Activision would not have given Jimmy Zielinski the budget to make Call of the Dead. Would Jimmy have made a different map instead? Or would Activision have stepped in and said, okay, we had our fun, zombies is over now? Or maybe zombies could have agreed that the maps would be more Kino Der Toten and Derice-like. Just small, simple maps with basic voice acting and no big budgets. If that were the case, developing maps like that would get tiresome and boring. If this were the case, Jimmy Zielinski would probably step down as Zombies' lead developer. That would mean the maps Shangri-La, Moon, Transit, Die Rise, and Buried would have never been made, which also means that Jason Blundell would have never taken over for Jimmy, and we would never have received Mob of the Dead, Origins, Shadows of Evil, Derizendraka, Zetsubo no Shima, Gorod Krovi, or Revelations. And forget about all the Black Ops 4 maps. Those would have never even been a thought. The enormous domino effect would occur, all because Kino Der Toten wasn't the launch map for Call of Duty Black Ops. Not that it didn't exist, but that it was the 4th DLC map for World at War. I like Kino Der Toten. I don't love it, however. It's not the best zombies map ever made. I think that title goes to Derizendraka, Shadows of Evil, or maybe Origins. But I recognize it as the most crucial zombies map ever made, because without it, none of us would be here today talking about Call of Duty Zombies, one of the best game modes ever made.